Hi, I'm Margaret Lewin and welcome to Margaret Lewin Quilting. Today we are going to be working on block 13, which is the Greek square block. It's also known as the monkey wrench block. So let's get going on it. The very first thing we're going to do is take our 4 larger blocks. I'm going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. I'm going to use my Creatives grids. This one's my 18.5 by 2.5 inch ruler. I'm just going to line this up and I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a sewing guideline. So what we will be doing is we will be sewing 1/4 of an inch away from both sides of that drawn line. What that's going to do is that's going to create a very nice half square triangle for us. So I'm just going to pin these together and then I'm going to take them over to my sewing machine. I am using Aurifil thread number 2311. That's the thread that I'm using to create this entire quilt. And I will be sewing most likely a 2.5 millimeter stitch line. So I'm going to go on over to my sewing machine, get these sewn, and I'll be right back to show you what it looks like. All right, I have sewn on both sides, and I hope you can see it. I'll bring it up a little closer. There, now you can see my stitches. And I'm just going to cut on my drawn line on both of these. Once I've cut on the drawn line, I'm going to grab my iron and my pressing mat, and I'm going to bring them over here. And I'm going to set my seams first, and then after I've set my seams, we're going to square these blocks right up. I'm going to show you how I go about squaring these blocks. So just a second and we'll move on to that. All right, there's my 4 blocks. Here is my wool pressing mat and my iron. So here are my 4 pieces. I'm just going to line these up so that I can set my seams. Now that I've set my seams, I'm going to press these open. Now, on the directions it says to press them to the darker side. You can either press them towards the pink, the green, or you can press your seams open. I like to press my seams open as much as I can, only because I think my quilt lays a little bit flatter when I do that. So the first thing I do whenever I use my strip stick for pressing is I open up my seams and I just kind of finger press it a little bit. Then I take my iron and sometimes I'll run my fingers in front of it, but most of the time I just let that point of the iron do its job. And take it and then I'll just give it one more little press and move on to my next one. Now, according to the directions, what we're going to do after we press these open, or to one side, however you want to press yours, the next step of what it is that we need to do is we need to square these up. So I'm going to grab one of my rulers and get ready to get these squared up. So we'll fast forward through this and then we'll be back and we'll square them up, and I'll show you where to double check your lines to make certain that you're good and square. See what happened here? If I just go over it again, let it sit for a second, and I'm all fixed. All right, I'm going to grab an oversized ruler in this instance. I just want you to see what I'm doing. Now, according to my directions, I need to square these up. So with a Creative Grids ruler, you can use either the 1/2 inch mark or the solid mark. The white is whole numbers, the black is half numbers. So if I turn this, because I know I need to square it to a half number, my very first cut, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up on what's called my 45-degree line, and this is my 45-degree line. Right? I'm going to hold my hand down on it, or my fingertips, and I'm going to cut and then cut again. Once I've done that, I'm going to take my piece and I'm just going to rotate it. So that now what I can do is use these two sides. So there's my number, and I'm gonna make sure I'm lined up straight here, here, and most of all here on my 45 degree. And I'm gonna trim and trim again. And you can see there's not a lot that you're trimming off, but it's enough that it's gonna make a difference. So I'm gonna get all of these trimmed, and then I'll be back and we'll do the next step. And I'm gonna set my ruler aside, and now it's time to read on. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to take our rectangles, and you can see we've got 4 green and then we've got 4 blue, and we're going to lay these one right on top of the other, and we're just going to sew a 1/4 of an inch line down the length of one side. So I'm going to sew on all 4 of these, and then I'll be back to show you what that looks like. Right, here are my 4, let me bring it up to the camera. See my seam? Here are my 4 pieces that I have sewn together, or 8 pieces that I've sewn into 4. I'm going to set my seams first. Now that I've set my seams, I'm going to press these. Now again, I could press them to the darker of the 2 fabrics, or I could press them open. On this one, I'm going to press them to the darker of the 2 fabrics. So I'm just picking it up, my darkest fabrics on top, picking it up, and I'm just going to hold it. And I'm not pulling it, I'm just holding it. And I'm going to press. I'm going to do that on all 4 of them. All right, so now these are all sewn. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the picture of my pattern, and I'm going to set that out. I'll set it right here so that we both can see it, and I'm going to set my block up. All right, I'm going to start by putting my 4 pieces, these 4 out. And what you're going to want to watch, there's 2 things is, you want to watch the placement of these fabrics, because you want your darks to come into the center, and you're going to watch the placement of these fabrics. So here's this one, and on the corners you want your pinks facing in towards the center. All right, now if you look at this, what I've got is a basic 9 patch. I'm going to sew these 2 together, then I'll add that one. I'll keep sewing. I'll add these together, then I'll add these 3 together. Then what I'll do is I'll press these center seams here, then I'll sew my 3 rows together, and my block will be all done. I'll come back and show you exactly how I went about pressing these so that you know how I made out with pressing these open and these to the darker side. Here is my block all put together. So let's get it pressed first. We got to set our seams. Roll it, set this side. Then I'm going to stand back and I'm going to take a look at it and try to figure out exactly how it is that I want to press this. I'm going to flip it over, and you can see that I think in most instances, except for right here and here, I have pressed it open. And I think that's what I'm going to do again. So I'm going to take my strip stick, and I'm going to open my seams that I've already set. And I'm just gonna press this open. Okay, now slide it down and do the same thing on this second seam. All right, checking all my seams over. I'm going to turn it over for you now. Just kind of lay it off flat, and what I'm feeling for is to see if I have any bumps, like right here, of things potentially going the wrong way. And I do have one right here. So I'm just going to flip it back over, take my iron. I'm not certain how much you saw and how much you didn't see because my camera ran out of room on the card. So I've gone ahead and pressed my seams. What I did was I ended up pressing these open. Oh, I got a little bump there still. And what I do when I turn this over is you'll see me many times doing this, and I didn't realize I did it until I started filming myself. What I'll do is flip it over like this, and then I take my hands and I run them over it. And what I'm actually doing when I'm doing this is I'm checking to make sure that all of my seams are pretty flat, and they are. I've got one little bump which I've just turned over and it's still staying back, so that's good. And this one's good. So don't hesitate to just take a minute and feel your fabric. Just make sure that it's laying nice and flat because your hands will feel it if it's not. All right? Make sure that when you put these corners together, you know, you're sewing across here, make sure that you've pinned on both sides of those seams so that your seams come out nice and pointy and together, which I think is important. And it's always such a good feeling when you make something and you take the time with it and the points come out so nice. So that is our block number 13 of our springtime sampler. So come on back tomorrow and you will see our very next block. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to get started on the next block, which I'm going to do as soon as we stop this one. See you again really soon, and don't forget to pop on over to the Facebook group and watch everyone else's progress. I'll see you over there. Bye.